Well, hello. And what a faux pas out of the gates. He makes a mistake, buckles under pressure. Nothing new here, but welcome to what can only be described as the chaos, the Circus of Safety. Welcome back. There's iLink. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Good to be here. How are you doing?
Mate, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. What's popped up? What is that? My giddy aunt. Are you telling me that you
How did
might
that
be
get
an
up
author?
there? Whoops. Yeah.
Oh,
So it's official. It's available on Amazon. This is a bit of an early bird sort of announcement to Circus of Safety listeners, but the book is available for purchase. If you hit that QR code with your phone's camera, it'll take you straight there, and it's pretty exciting for me. Hopefully, it's a bit of value and a bit of excitement for others as well.
now I don't want to kind of make the show all about you, Des, but I noticed in your LinkedIn profile you don't even acknowledge that you're a host of what can only be described as a diabolical waste of time. Are you intending to now put Desire Link author on your LinkedIn profile? That's just a quick question for me, really. I'm
I have
being bit of
considered it.
marketing for the Circus of Safety and all.
I think the key question is my involvement in the Circus of Safety just eliminated any possibility of having credibility in the industry, and I guess that's what I'm debating now.
Well, so someone has just scanned
Yeah.
the QR code. I don't know how I made that happen, but someone has literally
Wow.
scanned the QR code.
It was
Excellent.
me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy.
Now, Des, I've got to ask: would this constitute a secondary employment? I'm just asking for a friend here.
That's a really good question. Really good question.
Okay, well, anyway, Mr. Andy Evans, how are you today, sir?
I'm fantastic. All the better for hanging out with you guys this morning.
Now, two viewers have scanned the QR code. Des, I think you've gone viral.
Wow.
Both Jeff and
Very
Andy
encouraging.
have scanned the QR code. That's amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Hey, Andy, have you been doing much work lately?
Yep, busy week this week. Lots of interesting stuff with some really cool clients.
Nice.
Starting them off on a journey to, well, hopefully beyond compliance.
Well, and another person. I don't know how these people are scanning the QR code because I haven't got it up anymore. But we still got people scanning a QR code. It's brilliant. Must be delayed. And a welcome to our special guest, Mr. Jeff Sissons. How are you this morning, Jeff?
I'm very good, thanks, Brenton. I do think that all of our credibility is strained by being on the Circus of Safety, so you're not alone, Des.
I was actually going to ask, Jeff, do you have mild concussion?
What from, Brenton?
Well, I think after the last time you appeared on the show, you said you would never do this again, and here you are.
I've made a series of poor life choices since then, Brenton. But I do a Game of Thrones style intro. That's very impressive.
And I think you saw though, like, because you're on the show, you're actually somebody that I used to have, hold in high esteem, and I think I buckled under the pressure and put the wrong one on, so that was a little bit awkward.
I do want to say that after teasing you guys about Des's mum being your international viewer, my mum watched the last one, so if she's watching again, hi mum.
Oh.
Hi, Mum.
Jeff Sissons is doing shout outs to his mum.
Wow, we've hit a new low. But that's all right. Now, just a bit of a teaser, I guess. Jeff, you've joined us today because we've tried to time this perfectly. We had such huge feedback on your appearance on the last show where we looked at some of those reform announcements, and there's been a number of reform announcements that have hit the headlines in the last couple of last week or so. So today's show is dedicated to those new lot of announcements, and what we'll do is, as those announcements keep coming thick and fast, we'll look to try to do special editions if Jeff's mum allows him to get on the show again. Andy, again, we've had all these announcements, these reform announcements. Last show, you highlighted that maybe young Oliver, our apprentice, was moving out of the generalist space and maybe taking up a profession as a specialist in the hygiene space. How is young Oliver?
He's good. I think we've cured him of his temporary obsession with hygiene, and I think it's the lure of traffic cones that's dragged him back into mainstream safety. Because he's always liked traffic cones, even as a very youngster. So now he's just sees there's a huge opportunity for growth here. So I think we've got him back as a generalist now.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what does he have any before? I don't want to give too much of a teaser on the show, but does he have any feedback, thoughts on the current lot of announcements that have just come out?
He says there's lots of words.
Lots of words.
But not a lot of substance. Wow,
that's pretty deep and meaningful.
He is 10.
He is 10. Yeah, fair enough. He's possibly older than people answering the traffic cone hotline. I mean, anyway, let's get into it, right? So Des, before we start putting ourselves in hot water, mate, do you have any wise words of wisdom to protect us legally?
I certainly do. And following our alarming hygiene discovery of airwave BS as a digital contaminant emitted by this podcast, over the last few weeks, our team of absolutely not qualified researchers has identified a critical safety gap for which I think we have a solution. So we at the Circus of Safety are proud to announce the development of personal protective disclaimers, which is a breakthrough in passive BS exposure control. So these personal protective disclaimers can be printed on a t-shirt and worn during podcast listening. The text simply reads, "Personal protective disclaimer. This show contains BS and is not advice of any kind. Absorb nonsense responsibly."
Wow.
And wearing a personal protective disclaimer significantly reduces your risk of BS absorption. So stay safe, and wear your PPD.
Nice. Now, Des, I'll tell you, what we like about you, Des, is when you get onto it, you're like a dog with a bone, mate. You really dive deep. You take this thing seriously, and I think the identification of airwave BS is phenomenal. Quite concerning. Now, I don't know. Maybe between now and the next show, could you identify if there's one way I can kind of go do some health monitoring just to double check that I haven't been exposed to too much airwave BS? Because I'm starting to feel a bit off at the moment.
I think that's fair enough, because we found out we were 3 times the safe exposure limit for airwave BS. So maybe some sort of live monitoring of some sort of meter of BS as the show's ongoing might be a good addition to the show.
Fantastic. Now, Des, could you just get me a flat white, mate, so we can get on with the show. We're into it. So, as we said, huge announcement. Jeff, the reason for your appearance, because we don't know what we're talking about, we thought we'd get an expert in. Latest lot of announcements released. Is it really an announcement? Did we know what was coming? What are your initial thoughts on what you've heard over the last week or so?
I think that there's some stuff that on the surface sounds quite good. There's some ideas that I think we would all subscribe to, like more and better guidance with industry involvement and inspectors who understand the risks faced by businesses. One of the big problems for me, though, is how's that going to be resourced? And I think we need to be real that WorkSafe has had some real significant real terms cuts. They've lost almost 20% of their staff. There's no new money in the budget. So if we want them to do more and different and better, and I try to avoid talking about the road cone hotline, but it's a good example of a new function that's being added to WorkSafe. How are they going to be resourced to do this? I don't buy this whole back office frontline thing when it comes to health and safety. the back office functions were providing expert advice, and so cutting teams that provide advice on health, that wasn't a good call.
Yeah, and you raise a good point. I mean, the traffic cone hotline now has been live for what, about a week, is it, or 2 weeks? How many calls do we think? Do we want to? Should we run a poll maybe on how many calls they've received?
I believe there's been quite a lot. There was something in the news yesterday about it.
Oh, is that right? I clearly don't read the news. Wow. Just for I know we don't want to go down this traffic cone hotline thing, but I've got a traffic cone hotline joke. Do you guys want to hear it? Okay. Well, it's not really a joke, right? I guess it's more about it's more a statement, right? Thank you for calling the traffic cone hotline. Press 1 if you've tripped over. Press 2 if you've stolen one after a night out. Press 3 if you are in fact a traffic cone with abandonment issues. Like, I could probably send that through to them as a, hey, you can put this on your kind of, when you ring up and it kind of takes you through the sort of options you get to choose, but something to think about, right? And like you said, I guess interesting though, Jeff, and we'll dive into it a bit more, I think, later on in the show, but I don't stalk you on LinkedIn, okay? So I just want to be clear on that. But you also... what's that, sorry?
You only stalk me in person.
Well, I found out... hang on, Jeff. I might need to call a friend. Des, I need help.
Zip it. That's my advice.
That's your advice. Well, then, mate, the show would be over in a minute. Wow. But you also, talking about cuts, and maybe we dive into it a bit later on, but, you released a post that was beautifully written, by the way. And I love your image. It was about 50 resources quietly shipped away from the WorkSafe website. I mean, maybe that's how they intend to do it. So what they'll do is they'll get rid of a whole bunch of staff so they can reallocate resources somewhere else. I mean, quite amazing, wasn't it?
I do think that that was mostly guidance that WorkSafe considered out of date. So really the only resource they're freeing up there is a little bit of space on their website. I don't think that's going to move the needle too far.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, there we go. So the latest announcements, right? So I kind of dive deep. I read the cabinet paper, and we'll jump across to Andy first, because I know Andy's been quite vocal on this. But Andy, I mean, your thoughts. Obviously, the messaging that's come across. It's the kind of promise, and as you've mentioned before, politicians doing what politicians do, right? It's the statements make business leaders nod, right? Maybe get a bit excited that compliance is going, or they don't have to do as much. Safety professionals, we've all been kind of up in arms. Less red tape, more clarity. But really, what are your thoughts behind the smooth messaging that's been pushed out there around these changes? Is it just marketing BS, or is there some substance to it? What are your thoughts?
There's not a lot of substance to it, and it doesn't stand up to any sort of analysis. If you start to go through what's being said and start to analyze the terminology that's being used and the words that are being used, it's just a lot of word salad or linguistic gymnastics. The whole tone of the cabinet paper, I felt, is really focused on reducing bureaucracy. It barely mentions anything. There's very little empathy in there. About understanding that we're trying to make people's lives better, preventing harm, lowering workplace harm. It's just not about that at all. But if you look back at the Act manifesto, in there it's quite clear that it's about reducing bureaucratic burdens on business. So there's no real surprise there. But it's a little. I think it's a little bit heartless, and I think that's why a lot of the safety community are responding quite negatively to it, because a lot in the safety community are people that genuinely care about other people. They're very people-centric people. And I think this is quite an affront to some of them. And it is really interesting to understand where this is coming from and how people are responding to it.
Des, I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, with the latest release, I mean, you on the same page as Andy, or are you quite excited about this? Are you seeing some substance and something you can really, as a acclaimed author, you can really get your teeth into and maybe write another book about or something? I don't know.
Maybe you're giving me ideas. I'm a little bit equally skeptical as Andy, but maybe for different reasons. One of the claims that's been made is that there's going to be less red tape. It's going to be less confusing for businesses. However, red tape can mean a couple of things. It can mean unnecessary bureaucracy, or it can mean necessary steps that you have to take in order to add clarity. And what I'm trying to say here is that less doesn't necessarily equal more clarity. Sometimes, in order to account for the variety and novelty of work and workers, you actually need some complex, detailed documents and guidance in order to facilitate that. And just cutting 50 documents from that list, I can only see that being a bad thing. I mean, yes, one of the documents might refer to an old government agency that no longer exists. It's really easy to read past that. That's not a big deal. It really isn't. Interesting.
Jeff, I mean, I see you nodding there, mate. I mean, I can't believe, are you actually agreeing with what's been said? I mean, what are your thoughts on the way this has all been announced and released? And obviously, is it just marketing BS, or is there potentially some substance behind what's going on?
I think one of the frustrations for me is this government claims to be really keen on the investment approach. And I think that health and safety is a really great potential case for the investment approach, where you put in some money into prevention and stopping things from happening, and you prevent a really long tail of costs to employers, of costs to the health system, of costs to the ACC system, and not to mention the toll on workers and their families. So I think that if you get health and safety right, your return on investment is really massive. That's what the business leaders are saying when they say we'd save 4.9 billion if we equalised our performance with Australia. So I just think there's a strong case for investing more in health and safety rather than shifting the deck chairs.
Yeah, no, great. I'm going to kind of stay with you, Jeff, and we will at some point dive deep into some of the latest things that have been announced. But I was having a conversation yesterday, actually, as part of our New Zealand Journal of Health and Safety Practice interviews that we've been doing with authors of the journal articles. And I had the privilege of interviewing Mike O'Brien yesterday, and we got talking about all sorts of weird and wonderful things, because he was the guest editor on volume 1, issue number 2 for 2024. And one of the things that he brought up, and I haven't fact checked this, so this could be a bit embarrassing for me, but I take Mike O'Brien with what he's got to say. He made me aware. He reminded me actually that and it was sort of, you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute, but wasn't it the national government that actually introduced the concept of WorkSafe following Pike River, and they were the driving force behind it? Now, it'd be really interesting to get their take on what's going on. I know the Prime Minister's got to stand up and kind of, back the ministers, but really interesting case of maybe goldfish syndrome here, possibly. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was working at the CTU in the direct aftermath of Pike River, and in preparing for the show, I was looking at the Royal Commission report to Pike River, because that's the genesis of WorkSafe. DOL dropped the ball really significantly on mining safety and safety generally, so the Royal Commission said you need to create a new health and safety regulator. So Kate Wilkinson at the time accepted that the failings were significant enough that she resigned as a minister. She said, "Look, I've presided over a massive failure here, and I'm leaving." And to their credit, although it wasn't perfect, the national government took that stuff seriously. So they created WorkSafe in 2013, and they passed the Health and Safety at Work Act in 2015. And that was a massive undertaking. And although we might tweak the act, to Keith's point around is the health and safety has well fit for purpose, I think generally speaking the act itself is pretty good. It's more the lack of supporting. The regulations are incomplete, the guidance is out of date, and we haven't got kind of that joint steering of the system that is much more prevalent in Australia than the UK. I think that last one is probably the most important thing that we're not doing very well.
Yeah, no, fascinating. I got to be honest. I got so excited about having a special guest like Jeff. I forgot about the chat. The chat's been blown up. I don't know if you guys can see it. Friend of the show, long time listener, fellow podcaster, Greg Dearsley's dived in. He's obviously got excited. 400 phone calls apparently in the first week. Which is pretty exciting. Robert Powell's jumped in and he's given us a link. I don't think that's the link to your book, Des, but that's okay. He's sharing some stuff there. Got a couple of other comments coming in. Robert McCauley, listen, mate, we are because we're a disorganized mess. Andy was supposed to have the shirts ready for today's show so we could look to sell the personal protective shirts, but he dropped the ball, to be fair. And we don't have those shirts ready. And we've got a few things going on. We've got Jeff, Keith Harvey diving in. He's got a few comments there. I've got to be fair, Jeff, and he seems to be targeting you in this one. But did I miss? Maybe I fell asleep in the conversation. The IMHO?
In my humble opinion.
Oh!
Another health and safety. Yeah.
Interesting. So some great comments, and just a reminder, welcome to the show if you've just dived in. If you listen to this after the fact, if you join us live at 8:15 every second Friday, you too can contribute in the chat comments. Great to see Nicola Aitken diving in, having a good chat there with Keith. Great to have you join us live, Nicola. So thanks for coming in. I want to call in on a and I don't actually know where I'm going. I know we sent through some rough idea on where we're going to take this, but I want to dive into a statement that was made, and I'm just trying to find where I put it. Now this is going to be a bit embarrassing while I try to multitask. Clearly not a strong suit of mine. One of the comments that have popped out this week, and I'll paraphrase it because I can't find my notes in my notes at the moment. The concern that businesses feared WorkSafe. Jeff, I've got my opinion and I'm happy to share that. But Jeff, your thoughts. You talk to a lot of people, right? You get around, you talk to a lot of businesses, you talk to a lot of individuals. Would you agree with a statement like that business feared WorkSafe?
I have to take the minister at her word that somebody said that to her at some point in the consultation. You might recall NZISM did a big survey of health and safety professionals about the Act, the regs, the implementation, and the system. And we asked a couple of questions about WorkSafe in that. And we actually had more responses than the minister got to her consultation. We had about 1,300 responses. She had about 1,000. And in preparation for the show, I went back and looked at what was said in the survey. We asked people, have you interacted with WorkSafe in the last year? And if so, was that interaction positive? And 77% of those who responded said, yep, that was a positive interaction for me. Then I went and trawled through the 600 or so comments about WorkSafe and read them all. Most of them were saying WorkSafe needs more resourcing. Some of them talked about the need for inspectors to be more consistent or better trained. Less than a handful, less than 5, were about feeling worried about or afraid of WorkSafe. So there's probably are some people out there who are afraid of WorkSafe. I would say if you're worried about WorkSafe, then call in a health and safety professional, get in an NZISM member, and they can help you with that. But it just feels to me like this is a bit of a beat up.
Nice. In saying that though, don't reach out to Andy because I don't think he's an NZISM member. We might need to do he's good at selling. What do you belong to? Like the Snake Oil Association of New Zealand or something, Andy? Just, what are your thoughts as somebody that's not a member of NZISM? And thank you, Jeff, and NZISM for coming on this show and supporting the work that we do. I mean, Andy, what are your thoughts as a snake oil salesman? Do you feel work safe? What's going on? What are your thoughts?
For me, it's a case of unpicking what is the actual fear. I mean, what are these people actually scared of? I mean, you're scared of a government entity, you're scared of employees of that entity, or are you scared that you're not complying with the law, which is quite different to being scared of WorkSafe. And again, it's just these big, bold statements that when you actually start to analyze them, they're not really saying anything or not anything helpful. And I think just before we went on there, me and Jeff were chin-wagging about, that whole idea that politicians only ask questions if they're fairly certain they're going to get the correct answer. And, if you go out to a group of small businesses and say, WorkSafe are really scary, put your hands up if you're scared of WorkSafe, then you're going to get pretty much the answer that you want. And I've got a feeling that there's quite a bit of that going on here in the background. I've got no evidence of that, but I've got some strong suspicions.
Fantastic. I mean, Des, as somebody that possibly speaks to WorkSafe maybe more often than Andy would, because let's be fair, he doesn't actually do a real job. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, I guess any day you go to work, it could be a day that you call WorkSafe, not because you want to, but maybe because you have to. I mean, what do you fear picking up that? Well, you don't actually ring anymore, right? You do it online. I've hurt somebody. I'm really sorry. Sent through a whole bunch of information around. Do you sit there kind of sweating when you start filling out that notification form? Not suggesting that the company you work for fills them out on a regular basis. I just got to put a disclaimer in there. But, I mean, do you start sweating anytime you got to pick up the phone and call them and make them aware of anything?
I don't anticipate that reporting an overuse of road cones would make me sweat. But I agree with Andy so the short answer is no, but there are other things to fear. And that is the moral consequences of something bad happening, the social consequences of something bad happening, the commercial consequences of something bad happening, and even the legal consequences. And the legal consequences are actually follow a conviction, not WorkSafe involvement. So I think if you're going to fear something, it should be one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on some great stuff there. And I mean, Jeff, do you think maybe people are getting it wrong? I mean, if we are fearing WorkSafe, maybe we're not doing, maybe our rationale or our reasons for doing health and safety is not quite where it needs to be.
I think that there's a lot of businesses in the country and they're at different places in terms of their health and safety maturity and their motivations for doing things. Some are going to make changes because it's the right thing to do. Some are going to make changes because it leads to improved productivity or makes their workers happier. Some are going to do it because they've seen what happens when you get it wrong. And I think that's more common with large businesses is they have lived experience of something going wrong. So they take this stuff more seriously. Some businesses are going to see this as a compliance burden, and some of the rhetoric around the reforms hasn't helped that. So if they're worried that they're breaking the law, that if that's a spur to action, that's a good thing potentially. So WorkSafe needs to carry some kind of a stick, even if they're speaking somewhat softly while they carry it, I think.
Well, apparently we've just got some information here from Macaulay that apparently and this might be why, Jeff, maybe the minister's survey results, consultation results weren't as widely received as yours were from NZISM, but apparently they only spoke with the Chamber of Commerce and it wasn't a general invite. So again, I guess you can always manipulate things as you want. Here we go. Here's some more expertise on the show. Wow, we suddenly went up a level. I think the merger of the dedicated investigation team into the General Inspectorate is a positive move. Well, and that's great. I mean, I guess we've kind of started talking a lot about some of the negativity around some of these changes, and we will touch on some of the positives, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I mean, you started touching on some stuff there, Jeff, and I've got to ask, and again, I had a really fascinating conversation this week about this, and is fear sometimes not a good thing? I guess, like you mentioned, if that's the thing that spurs people into action, we often talk about New Zealand's maturity when it comes to health and safety and how our maturity levels as a country in relation to this are quite low in comparatively speaking with other, developed countries. I mean, so there must be some benefit to the fear aspect of it, right? To spur people interaction. I mean, what do you take on that?
I think that there's productive fear and there's unproductive fear, and this goes straight to the question of, are we making it easy enough for people to know that they've done the right thing in health and safety? And that goes to guidance. It goes to having easy access to people who know what they're talking about. Because if you say, I'm worried about the risks in my business and I'm worried that I'm not compliant with the law, then you go and fix them. That's a good result. If you're just worried about the risks in your business and you have no idea how to fix them and you just sit there sweating day after day, week after week, that's not particularly helpful for anybody. I just want to there's a really interesting graph in the latest State of the Thriving Nation report that the business leaders put out, and they looked at the difference between the regulators in Australia and the regulators in New Zealand, and what they found was the Australian regulators are doing a lot more low-level enforcement action and a lot more proactive inspection. So they're doing more enforcement notices, they're doing more improvement notices. And the New Zealand regulator is charging a lot more cases. And I do think that if you speak to anybody who's been through a major WorkSafe prosecution, it is incredibly traumatic for everybody involved, not just the affected worker and their families, but also the business who go through the ringer in terms of that stuff. So I do think one of the good potential things coming from this reform is WorkSafe looking for these other tools in their toolkit. So I'm agreeing with my esteemed colleague Mike, who's saying WorkSafe are looking for more off-ramps other than prosecution. That might not be a bad thing so long as it leads to better performance.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess jumping up to Des, I mean, often, and Des, I'm sure you've heard the same thing, right? If you want to drive culture change and leaders want to drive change in culture, right, boots on the ground is what's needed, right? Leaders getting out from behind their desks, leaders getting on the shop floor, leaders talking with their people. I mean, what do you think on that concept, WorkSafe maybe taking that more approach and what Jeff's brought up about that research by the Business Leaders Forum?
Without a doubt. I mean, you've got to engage, and that's the most effective way to do that is face-to-face, hands down. It doesn't get any better than that. What I would say, though, that's in the narrative, when we talk about WorkSafe's purpose, it seems to be this very binary thing. They're either an enforcer or they're an educator and a supporter, and it's either one of those two things. And maybe I'm being cute with words here, but I think they need to be a regulator, which includes both of those things, but it also includes a lot more. And if we're going to have an effective regulator, they should look at things like what's causing the most amount of deaths, respiratory illness. How do we fix respiratory illness? We do improvement notices. We get out on the ground and tell people about fit testing and respiratory protection and creation of dust. We provide fit testing funding or support, Commit to Fit by the Hygiene Society of New Zealand, and make that cheaper for people to obtain. There's so much more than just enforcing and educating. There's regulating, and I think we need to take a step back.
Nice, cool. Now, if we'll kind of start maybe looking more broadly at some of the announcements. We've got into some real specifics, and I guess some of the key themes that I've pulled out, the three key things that have come out of the latest lot of announcements there. Proportionate enforcement, practical guidance, consistent communication. I mean, Jeff, what are your thoughts? Sticking a little bit with what focusing on these sort of key themes that have come out over the last week or so. Listening to what Des was saying. I mean, what are your thoughts? Can the regulator be everything to everybody, or does it need to pick a side for now? Or where do you sit on the fence with that one?
I guess as a former lawyer, some of the stuff around proportionate enforcement made me quite frustrated, because really the minister saying just focus on clear breaches. In her Q&A interview, she said she'd only be prosecuting negligence and don't look for novel case law. When I was in the minister's office, one of the things we said to WorkSafe is the Health and Safety at Work Act is new law. What businesses need to have clarity is case law. And so you need to look for those areas like overlapping duties, like directors' duties, and create case law on it. And so the just do the bread and butter clear breach prosecutions, that doesn't really help businesses get clarity as to what they need to do. So that frustrated me a little bit.
Great insight. I mean, Andy, your thoughts. I mean, I see you shaking your head. I mean, I don't know whether you've just something in the water on Pukekohe or what it is, but what are you thinking with what you've been hearing over the last? I mean, personally, the fact that Des said more than one word and more than one sentence a minute ago was phenomenal. I mean, what are your thoughts on those three sort of areas that have come out? Proportionate enforcement, practical guidance, and consistent communication. I mean, what do you say to people that go, nah, it is? I don't see that happening.
Oh, I think as an aspiration, it's absolutely fine. But from a practical implementation point of view, if you're not increasing the funding, then you can't create something out of nothing. So you've got to move things around, and you can't do all of it. You've got to. I mean, it's the whole nature of risk management, I guess. You've got to work out what you're going to focus on and what you're going to do, and shifting a regulatory organisation that's been primarily, I would suggest, focused on enforcement, and shifting that across to have a focus on education is those are quite different things. Quite different things. There's a huge cost in retraining and re-resourcing things, and where does that money come from?
Yeah, interesting. Jeff, the paper pulled out a clear example, and I know Des started to touch on it, but really interested in your thoughts around, approved codes of practices that are currently there. And we touched on the 50-odd documents that have been removed quietly from the website, probably even more quietly than the release of their psychosocial guidelines, right? What are your thoughts on that, right? I mean, approved codes of practices and documentation, kind of referencing disestablished industry bodies or previous pieces of legislation. Because I know, talking with Mike O'Brien again earlier this week, he made me aware again. He obviously has no spare time or doesn't have a life. The amount of reading this man probably does. But when Australia released the same model law that we've copied effectively, they released about 17 regulations on the same day. We took a bit of a let's slowly release, more of a kind of thing. I mean, what are your thoughts around things like the guidances still referencing old legislation or old industry bodies and the like? I mean, do you see that as a problem?
I feel like, yes, we probably could have done more to have those day one pieces of regulation ready. I was quite involved in some of those, the development of some of those regulations. I was on the steering group that developed the general risk and workplace management regs. But there was always an idea that we had enough momentum to kind of complete the rest of the job. So there's the stuff that's sitting in the tranche, what they used to call the tranche 2 guidance, being plant and structures, hazardous work, and hazardous substances. And in 2014, we were saying we'll have all this done by 2017, but the carriage has not come around the mountain yet, and it feels like that stuff's just been put into the too hard basket. So we still maintain that modernising the hazardous substances regulations, that filling some of the gaps and some of the odd exemptions in plant and structures and thinking about hazardous work is the right thing to do. On the guidance side of things, it's a really good idea to have modern, up-to-date guidance. My worry about just removing 50 pieces of guidance is it seems like the repeal has happened before the replacement, and so there are some gaps opening up in the guidance portfolio that I think maybe there is intention to fill either by WorkSafe or by industry. But in the meantime, businesses just don't know what to work on. And on the ACOP side of things, having ACOPs as a safe harbour could be a useful idea, but only if those ACOPs represent good practice. If the ACOPs are creating a floor that's unsafe or unhelpful or anti-competitive, then we're probably making the problem worse. So how those ACOPs are created and signed off and checked to make sure that they represent good practice is a really important question, and it's not yet answered, I don't think.
Fantastic. Just got Carl Llewellyn jumping in engagement, education, and enforcement. Do the first two well, and it will reduce the number of the third one. Quite a simple yet profound statement. Jeff, you and I have spoken a number of times, and I really want to help the safety industry kind of, move forward and whatnot. And I've got some more help for WorkSafe's Road Cone Hotline. When they put you on hold, I'm just wondering if we could go with the theme music. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes.
The bad news is that the Road Cone Hotline is in fact an online form. There's no call you can make while stuck in traffic. You can probably text it on your phone, but that's not great from a safety perspective.
I
do want to draw people's attention, and I try not to talk about the Road Cone Hotline, but there was a really great piece by Fox Mayer on Newsroom a couple of weeks ago. He looked at the original Road Cone Hotline, which was introduced under the John Major government in the UK in the 90s, and the assessment of that Road Cone Hotline was for every 3,400 calls made to the Road Cone Hotline, one road cone was moved. So I think that if we're talking about government efficiency and waste, then we need to have a really critical look at what it means to take WorkSafe staff off the tools of developing guidance and engaging, enforcing, and educating to deal with these road cones.
You just lost me at the fact that's not a phone number, and I can't believe I didn't know that till this point in time. I'm disappointed. But let's just focus back on. We're now no longer going to talk about this hotline because it's actually not a bloody hotline. So, what a schmozzle that is. Consistent communication. I mean, there's in your thoughts how, when we're dealing with people, and I mean, you deal with people all the time. You got people out on the site. How do you create consistent communication when in fact we're dealing with people?
That's a really good question. I know that in the context of WorkSafe, they need to be well decided on what their purpose is and what KPIs drive that purpose, and that's probably going to dictate the nature of the discussion and the communication. Touching less on communication, but more on Jeff's point earlier, if your KPI is to get 80% success rate in prosecutions, you're going to go for bread and butter prosecutions. If your goal is to reduce respiratory deaths, you're going to pursue prosecutions that provide clarity to that area of law and overlapping duties, which lends itself straight to Jeff's point. So I think, we talk about what the purpose of WorkSafe is. Is it engagement? Is it education? Is it enforcement? All of those things could be excellent or could be meaningless, and that depends on how they're managed with KPIs.
Fantastic. No, Mark. No, we will not be using a consultant. But let's move across to our consultant in the room, an educator apparently by trade. I mean, Andy, how do you get consistency in messaging when you're dealing with people? I mean, you look at the three of us, right? We all read the same stuff. Yet I'm the only one that seems to have any kind of common sense approach to what we're talking about. You guys go off on a totally different, tangent. How do you create consistency when dealing with people, and how do we get that message? Those people delivering a consistent message in your mind. Is it easy? Is it that easy?
I think this is the nub of the problem. I think this is the root cause of all this.
Are you suggesting we fire everybody and just use AI? Is that what you're suggesting?
No. Well,
did I just hear that?
No, but one of the problems to build, the problem is engagement, right? If people are engaged in safety, it'll happen. If people aren't, they won't. And people find it difficult to become engaged in it because they don't really understand it. And I think Nicola she made that comment earlier on, is that as safety people, we can't even agree on definitions of stuff. We can't even agree what safety is and what safety isn't. Is it an outcome? Is it a process? What is it? So until the industry or the regulators come together with a clear approach, this is the way we're doing it, then you're going to get mixed messages. And leaving it to the market, I think, has been a disaster. And I think actually the safety education, safety training in New Zealand has got a lot to answer for historically, because we've produced a whole heap of people that have learned this incorrectly, I believe. And it still happens now, is that there's no consistency. You go to one company's course, this is what risk is. You go to another one, this is what risk is. And all that comes together and it just creates confusion. And WorkSafe are about as bad as anybody else. If you do a critical analysis of the terminology that you use in your documents, it's not consistent. It's not consistent at all. And until we get some definitions, until we get some clear definitions about what it is we're actually talking to and how to approach this, we're just going to keep going around in circles. And
so what I've taken from that is
a clear definition of a hazard and absence of a definition of a risk from the legislation is not helpful. Is absolutely not helpful.
Yeah, but people making promises that they can't deliver is just as bad. I mean, you've been threatening this bloody dictionary of definitions since the show started some 3 years ago, mate. And this is almost becoming on T-shirt gate. Where's this dictionary that you've been promising?
I'm making it as up as we go along. It's difficult. That's why nobody's done it, because it's difficult. So with the definition of risk, for example, I looked through the ISO documents, and there's 43 different definitions of risk across ISO documents. So which one of those do we go with? Well, to be fair, I don't care. But let's decide we're going with one and stick with it for 10 years. And it's the same with the whole psychosocial stuff. Psychosocial hazards, psychosocial risks. Are they the same? Are they different? No one can tell me. So it just creates confusion. And it's confusion that leads to disengagement, and the disengagement leads to accidents. So I genuinely think the root cause of this is get some consistency and understanding about the basic principles and foundations of what we're trying to achieve. The rest of it will work after that. Thanks very much. Rant over.
Oh, yeah, well, what I'm getting out of this is you need to actually do what you say you're going to do and create this dictionary. Now, as we start running out of time, we probably could have kept going for the day on this topic, but I'm mindful that, Jeff, you've got a real job to get to, as do Des and I. I mean, Andy could probably run the rest of the show on his own, right? Because it's not like consultants do much work. Jeff, just kind of wrapping up this topic on this latest lot of reforms. I know we went quite broad on it today. We didn't really dive into specifics, but to be fair, what I picked out of the latest announcements was quite broad. I noticed the first lot of announcements were quite specific. This one seemed a bit more broader. I mean, just wrapping up the topic, what are your final takeaways, thoughts? What do you want to leave people with going forward?
I think that, as I said at the start, there's a couple of potentially good ideas in this reform, but my question is how we're going to get to them. And I do think that, I'll just respond briefly to what Andy's saying. I think that WorkSafe could deliver guidance in a way that's more meaningful to people on the ground. I'll take the psychosocial risk guidance that's just come out as an example. That's a good piece of guidance, but it's about 47 pages long, and if you said to a small business owner or a health and safety rep, here you go, off you go, they will struggle or they will throw it away. So there's a need to chunk that guidance down into smaller, more useful, meaningful pieces that's written in the right voice and communicates ideas in the right way. So if we can get that and focus on guidance, that's a really good idea. The inspector side of things, really, inspectors are mostly been trained in how to regulate when they come in, and many of them come in from a police or a customs or another government background, rather than a health and safety background. So I think if we want inspectors to be clearer with people about the risks and how to address them, we should be thinking about how we uplift their inspector capability. Now, inspectors can become members of NZISM. We've got a deal with WorkSafe, and I would strongly encourage them to do so and to come along to our CPD events to engage with the NZISM members. But I think this is going to be a work in progress, and I think it's going to take resourcing and real deliberate effort, because we've got lots of new inspectors coming in. Let's get those new inspectors as good as we possibly can.
Nice, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, Andy, the deal doesn't apply to you. You just got to get your money out of your pocket and pay for your membership and actually become a proactive member of society, please. It'd be greatly appreciated. Des, your final takeaways on the topic?
Look, I think it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, but I'm not expecting any sweeping improvements to workplace injuries and fatalities in New Zealand in the near future. I think it's either looking bleak or the same.
Andy, sorry to interrupt whatever's going on there on your phone, but any final wrap-up thoughts from you?
I agree with Des. I can't see there being a largely positive outcome from a safety perspective. It's either going to be broadly the same or not as good.
Brilliant.
That's my feeling.
Okay. Now, Jeff, do we need to panic? Do we need to race out there? You're a bit more closer to how the law works here in New Zealand than the three of us. I know Des is trying to catch up to you, but do we need to run out and start changing what we're doing right now, or do we still just need to sit tight, take it on board, get involved, where are we at in the process?
So some of these changes are operational changes, and the minister can just direct WorkSafe to do them, and she's done that via her letter of expectations. But a lot of the bigger stuff is going to be wrapped into the Health and Safety at Work Reform Bill, as I see it's now being called in the Cabinet Papers. And the Cabinet Papers say that the bill needs to be introduced this year. So I'm expecting to see something pretty major come out probably October, November. And that will be a chance for health and safety folks, for business owners, for people to have their say about these ideas. And I'm a genuine believer in the parliamentary process, improving bad ideas and generating good ideas. So we will certainly be talking to NZISM members about getting your experience, your expertise, your knowledge on the tools, and your good ideas into that parliamentary process. And talking to your MPs. So don't panic yet, but get ready to be active on these things, because next year's election year, and we're all our shared mission here is to improve health and safety.
Fantastic, and I'm going to put a wee little challenge out. I'm going to put a call out. I think once it starts getting closer and the papers come out, it'd be great to have Brooke Van Velden on the show. It would be great to dial in and maybe facilitate. We might need to kind of improve our software and whatnot for the volume of viewers. But I'm going to put it out there. If the minister is tuning into what can only be described as New Zealand's worst safety podcast, put your money where your mouth is. Love to have you on the show. We just really want to ask questions. We just want to understand, and we really just would love to have a conversation. So if anyone knows Brooke's cell phone number, I'm happy to ring her before I get a restraining order placed on me. But yeah, please, let's see if we can make this happen before, so we can have our say and we can get involved. And just to kind of wrap up from
maybe we can incentivize her with a personal protective disclaimer T-shirt.
If Andy can actually get that together, yeah, that'd be great.
In pink, we could do it in pink. She only wears pink, doesn't she?
Well, there we go. We could do a special edition Brooke disclaimer T-shirt. So the language of the reform is strong, I guess, but the delivery, the devil will always be in the delivery of those things, and I think that's what we've been kind of highlighting there. And if WorkSafe becomes friendlier but less effective, I guess the question I'm going to be asking is, what have we really gained? And the guidance needs to be practical, but if it's inconsistent, I guess who's going to pay that price, right? And those are some things that we need to be thinking about. Appreciate for those that have hung on longer than our normal show, but this is a juicy topic. And again, just want to welcome a new member to the LinkedIn group. He's a paid member of LinkedIn, so he's probably seen me on his profile. So hopefully this doesn't become awkward like the restraining order Jeff has on me. But Dresius Walhata, he is the principal HEC practitioner, occupational health at SA Operations, Sasol Secunda Chemicals. I didn't know LinkedIn allowed you to put that much in a job title, to be fair. That's pretty impressive. He's been there for 28 years. That's a dedicated man and a commitment. He's moved up through the ranks by the looks, and he hails out of South Africa. Apparently, both Des and Jeff know him. So thanks for helping increase our ratings, Jeff, by one more listener. So absolutely phenomenal.
Thanks for helping increase NZISM's membership by one more member. Andy, I did the first one for Brenton, second one for Des. You want me to come back?
Very good.
He's far too sharp for us, guys. This Jeff.
Hey, Jeff has paid the bill for Des and I's membership. We did
I'll check in.
Cheers, please.
Checks
please,
in the post, Jeff. The checks in the post.
Please send Bay Corp round to Andy Evans if our memberships are not paid. Well, so listen, just as we wrap up, a couple of comments coming in. Lee Ratcliffe, great session, guys. We have here Robert McCauley again, great session team, and another one coming through here, Emlyn Moore. Thanks for giving your time, Jeff. Good session team. And yeah, massive thanks to all those that have contributed to the chat. Just a couple of quick reminders as we wrap up real fast. We're not going to have time to check in about what people are doing over the coming weeks, but really quickly, don't forget, we'll put this in the chat, I think, Des. We'll get this on our LinkedIn page. The party's planning is coming really well. I'm just looking for a drinks sponsor. So I'm looking for a drinks sponsor. If anyone is willing to shout the drinks at Des's Books launch party. However, scan the QR code like somebody just did. That'll take you through to Amazon where you can purchase your copies. We're doing a bit of a soft launch. Des is also on a bit of a roadshow. Wednesday, the 9th of July, NZISM. He'll be there talking about the forgotten foundations of investigation evidence, what safety missed from the law. So please, 12 p.m. You can eat your lunch at the same time, right? Because I mean, Des doesn't say a lot, so you'll be able to get a lot in at the time. So feel free to eat your lunch. Come with lots of questions. It's going to be a great show. I'm assuming it'll be hopefully maybe. Oh yes, Andy.
I'm doing an NZISM thing as well in the Bay of Plenty.
That's not endorsed by the show, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Anything you do outside of the show,
it'll be good though. It'll be really good and really funny.
You remember we had this in your employment conversation we had last week. You didn't get that authorised by us. Des did. Jeff, listen, mate. Massive thank you. Hopefully, this doesn't affect your career progression too badly. Again, hello, Jeff's mum. Hopefully, you were listening. What are you up to the next little while, Jeff? What's on the cards at NZISM or in the life of Jeff Sissons?
Well, next week is the Safeguard Conference and the Safeguard Boards, and for those of our members who are in Auckland or Auckland members, we're having a pre-conference cocktail function. There's still a few tickets left to that. And we're going to be celebrating a couple of very esteemed NZISM folks, Mike Cosman and Grant Nicholson, awarding them with their life membership. So if you're interested in that, come along. We'd love to see you there.
Fantastic. No, it is going to be great. Unfortunately, I'll be out of Auckland that week due to work commitments. I don't think Andy's got anything on. Again,
I'm in the South Island.
Yeah. Will you have membership packs there that he can sign up, Jeff?
Well, that bounces at the door with the Andy's photo.
Nice. As we wrap up, listen, it's been a blast. Jeff, again, thank you for your insights, and no doubt we'll keep in touch. I'll get Des or Andy to be in touch now that you've blocked my phone number, and that way, hopefully, we can get you on as these start coming through. But again, my call out to Brooke Van Velden: let's get you on the show. Let's have a chat once you pull this all together and you've got something for us to talk about. Love to get your thoughts and your opinion and get the team engaged. So till then, hopefully everyone takes care. Have fun and catch you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.